Hi, this is Mrs. Cotter. We're going to go over week 7, day 4 and 5. So this lesson is a little tricky, so we're going to try to go through it slow together. So below it says, draw a line segment that represents 1 unit, when line segment AB represents 1/3 of a unit. So first of all, we got to figure out what this word unit means. So when it's talking about 1 unit in this sentence, it's talking about a whole. So what it says in this problem is that this line here, AB, this whole entire line is going to equal 1/3. So from A to B, it equals 1/3. Now it wants to try to get to 1 whole using that line, so or 3/3. So how many 1/3s do we need, or lines do we need to get to 3/3 or 1 whole? Well, we're going to need 3. So we need 1, that's going to equal 1/3. 2, that's 2/3. And 3, that's 3/3 or 1 whole. So each of these lines equal 1/3. So we need 3 AB lines to get to 1 whole, because remember, from A to B, that equals 1/3. All right, now it's going to get a little bit trickier. This time it says, draw a line segment that represents 1 unit, when line segment AB represents 2/3 of a unit. So remember that 1 unit means 1 whole. So if I break this AB apart, we have, oops, let me fix that. If I break this apart, this part is going to be 1/3, and this part is going to be 2/3. This whole entire line now from A to B equals 2/3. The only thing I did is I just split it up so that we see that this is 1/3, this is also another third, so 2/3. So if I have my line A to B, and remember, how much does AB, that line of AB, equal? It equals 2/3. I'm going to split it again, because this part is 1/3. Let's write that in. This part is 1/3. And this part is also another third. That makes 2/3. Now, how many thirds or pieces do I need to add to AB to make it 1 whole? Remember that 1 whole can either be 3/3, or that means the same thing as 1 whole. So I have 1/3, 2/3, and I need to make another line to get to 3/3. Now, remember, only this piece right here equals 1/3. You don't want to draw this whole entire long line, because that equals 2/3. So you only want to draw half of that piece. 1/3, 2/3, and now we have 3/3. And now this whole entire thing here is going to equal 3/3. Okay, that was a little bit tricky. All right, now it's going to get a little bit harder. This time, we're working with halves. It says, draw a line segment that represents 1 unit, when line segment AB represents 1.5 units. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to break this apart into halves. This is 1/2. This is another half. And this is another half. Now, if I'm just looking at this part right here, I'm going to cover that up, this piece right here. Let's cover this up. Now, if I'm only looking at this piece right here, from A and not from the blue square, this piece right here equals 1, because 1/2 plus 1/2 equals 1 whole. Now I'm going to get rid of that blue square. 1 plus 1 and 1.5 equals 1, and this piece is 1.5. So now this whole entire piece, A to B, equals 1/2. 1/1/2. Because remember, a half and a half equals 1, and then this piece is a half, so it equals 1/2. But remember, we need to get it to a whole. So if I have my line from A to B, and it equals 1/2, I'm going to show you that again, just in case you're a little confused about that. A to B, splitting it up. Remember, each piece equals a half. Each piece is a half, and the whole entire piece from A to B equaled 1/2. Okay, so from A to B it equals 1/2. Now I need to get to a whole, so I need to get to 2. So if I have 1/2, how many halves do I need to add to AB? Well, I need to add another half. And remember, we're not drawing a long line because only one of these pieces is a half. It's a smaller length. So now I have 1/2 and another half, that's going to equal 2. All right, that one was a little bit trickier. All right, let's go into task number 2. It says Aiden's work. Aiden thinks that 1/4 equals 1/2. He drew the number lines below to show that 1/4 equals 1/2. Well, let's look here. Well, I see that he drew a number line with fourths and that he did his lines correctly and they look alright. But the one problem that I see is that this line, this number line, is a lot longer than the one for the halves. Okay? So if I'm going to compare it, I need to make sure that this number line is the same exact length as the number line that's going to be for the fourths. Because now it does look like 1/4 and 1/2 are equal, but they're not the same line. This number line is scrunched up together and this number line is stretched out. So if I make it the same length, 0 would be here and 1 would be here. And the half would be right there down the middle, and it would be like that. And this shows me that 1/2 is actually bigger than 1/4. You have to make sure that when you're comparing numbers that the number lines are the same exact length. Then you can compare them. So Aiden is incorrect. And remember, you want to write a sentence. He's incorrect because, well, we talked about the number lines. They're not the same size. So that's why he's incorrect. He needs to make sure that if he's going to compare them, that the number lines are the same exact size. So it says, write the correct comparison for 1/4 and 1/2 using the less than or greater than sign. So which one did we say was greater than? Remember, you can look up at our number lines up here. Is 1/4 closer to 0 or is 1/2 closer to 0? 1/4 is closer to 0, so it's less than 1/2. All right. And that's all for day 4 and 5 for week 7. All right. This one was a little bit trickier of a section or a day. This was optional, but it's really important that you understand how to do this because you might see it come up again, whether it's on a quiz or a test or maybe even Park or even iReady. So you just want to make sure that you understand how to do this, even though this was sectional. All right, remember, if you have any questions, you can contact me, Miss Fifield, or Miss Fisher. Also, remember that week 8 and 9 packets are outside of Tubman, so make sure you pick those up. All right, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.